Hello everybody, I'm Mango Thunderslice, and I'm chilling here with Miss Isla Spring Thunderslice again. We're having a nice little day together while Miss Space Panther is out there getting stuff at the store. And basically today we're talking about Kavanaugh, the Kavanaugh hearings, and kind of the fatal flaw of the left and of just liberal progressive thought, and I guess political thought in general. You know, this whole charade with, Kavanaugh illustrates perfectly kind of the working thesis that I've been kind of talking about in videos here and there. That basically, the right-left phenomenon is a psychological phenomenon, right? Of, the right wing is controlled by the left brain, right? The left wing is controlled by the right brain. Right. Even Jordan Peterson sent out a tweet maybe yesterday or something talking about how left brain dominant people, logic, rationality, math, equations, solid answers, is more of the predator mindset. And the right side of the brain, the feeling, the experience, non-linear thought, non-concrete answers, right? Is very much the mentality more of a prey animal, and it's, we as humans and, all living creatures, I guess, have the ability to use both hemispheres, but what we have is a culture that doesn't promote balance, it promotes imbalance, and so people go into one extreme or the other. I know, Isla. And, we have people who are hyper-feely emotionally, and like rationality and logic and facts and evidence just does not compute. And we have people, of a similar extreme on the other side who, see only the hard answer but can't see kind of the non-linear aspect in between of things that isn't so easy to perceive, right? And I think to any rational person it's pretty clear which side has gone more extreme and more violent than the other, right? They they want to say it's all white nationalists rising to take back the the country, but really all the violence we see is on the left, both physical violence and emotional, psychic, spiritual violence. We see people who are just enraged all the time on the left. They've been, especially since Trump got elected, they've been just maddeningly outraged about the whole situation, right? And a lot of things about the Kavanaugh hearing, I listened to pretty much the whole thing. I listened to all of Dr. Christine Blasey Ford's testimony. I listened to all of Kavanaugh's testimony afterward. And a few thoughts. While listening to Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, I thought she sounded fairly credible. I did wonder right at the outset, why is she talking like a baby? Like, why is her voice like that, some women just kind of speak like girls, I guess, for whatever reason. But, she's, I don't know, in Palo Alto, like, it's not like she's like a valley girl down, in Southern California. She's in Palo Alto also, which is ground zero of Silicon Valley and Google and big tech and like a whole bunch of, very powerful entities, and also very dark side stuff in the Bay Area, which, I've done a few videos about that. But anyway, it caused me to think of a few things, just starting with Dr. Ford's testimony, and what supposedly happened to her when she was 15 years old. It does sound like she experienced some trauma, and she is very convinced that it's Brett Kavanaugh. A lot of people have pointed out the unreliability of eyewitness testimony, especially in traumatic events, right? And that's what the excuse that they use for why she doesn't remember how she got to the house, how she left the house, all these different material details. But she says she's 100% certain that it was Brett Kavanaugh who assaulted her, And the fact that, her voice is kind of babyish can speak to, that lasting trauma, I suppose. Basically when people suffer trauma, especially rape victims at an early age, right, they kind of, it freezes their psychology at that age component. So, it's like, she's still almost in her 15-year-old mindset in a sense, and that's why she's speaking that way. Going with the legitimate aspect of her presentation and believing that something did happen to her, right? It, it's kind of warped her psychology a little bit, and, having a daughter now, little Isla, right here, it makes me think of, even if Brett Kavanaugh didn't do it, somebody did do something to her. Sexual assault is a real thing, right? There is a very dark side of the masculine that is rampant within the culture, and I think that the culture actually accentuates it. I think that rape culture is rap culture, right? They want to talk about how all men are rapists. No, all the men who believe in rap culture and all that bullshit, those are the potential rapists, right? Because that's their MO, that's what they're celebrating with their whole lifestyle, is taking things by force and, not abiding by the moral rules of the universe, right? But anyway, it's like the Harvey Weinsteins of the world. These, there's real stuff going on out there, and, there's been a lot of good things about the Me Too movement. It makes me, I have to return to the point that the fact that feminists don't advocate for women being trained in self-defense and armed with firearms and concealed carry permits, I think that's a grave disservice to all women, and I think it shows how disingenuous they are, that they're really just a front for this neo-Marxist type of thought. They're not actually genuinely interested in protecting women from potential assaults and abuses. Because, otherwise the strong women of the world understand completely the value of knowing how to defend yourself with or without a firearm. And I will encourage that for Isla. I want us to be taking family, karate classes, Krav Maga, some form of martial art, right? She should be able to defend herself, without any firearm. She should be able to confront an attacker and be able to respond, and at least not, freeze up in panic. I think that's extremely valuable for men and women. I'm not really trained that much in self-defense, formally, but I think for women it's especially useful. Because again, men have the advantage of just strength, right? Of bigger upper body strength, right? Whereas women, just don't. So the addition of skills as far as self-defense is going to play out much more in their favor, whereas a man can kind of just rely on his own strength and stamina, I suppose. Beyond that, of course, I do believe in firearms for women. Again, she was 15 years old, Dr. Ford, in this story. But again, I think it's more of anything, it's a mentality of defense, of being aware of your surroundings, knowing, when you're walking down a hallway, know what's going on behind you, know what's going on in front of you, know what's going on in the rooms around you. Just be aware, right? And so that's kind of was my reaction to Dr. Ford's testimony, is how do I prevent any assault happening to my daughter, regardless of whether or not this, thing that happened to her was Brett Kavanaugh or not, right? And, Brett Kavanaugh came out with just an impassioned, right, defense of himself and his family, just taking on the attackers, basically illustrating that, a lot of these blue team hardcore, politicians, they would say, we'll do anything necessary, any means necessary to stop this candidate, right? The moment that Kavanaugh was nominated, they were already opposing it, right? There's been and has been and continues to be an extremely coordinated effort to stop him, right, from being confirmed. Assuming that if they just delay past the midterms, it's going to all work out well for them and they'll retake the Senate. Yeah, I don't think so. The polls, while it's very competitive, I think it's good that the polls are very competitive because it's going to increase voter turnout for the red team, right? I think that there's a very good chance that the red majority in the Senate actually increases. But we'll see. We'll see. I've got a good feeling about it, though. I think that a lot of people are galvanized by this whole Kavanaugh thing. Again, kind of stoking the cultural fire that brought Trump into the White House. Got a whole bunch, millions and millions of people who had never voted before out to the ballot box on Election Day and basically put Trump in the White House. And again, this sense of hubris on the left, on the blue team, that, oh, Hillary Clinton's going to win, we don't even need to go and vote because she's going to win by such a landslide, right? That hubris caused lower turnout for them, and, we all know what happened, At the same time, the close races is going to increase the turnout for the blue side, so we'll see. It's going to be interesting, but, you little smiler. But yeah, I guess it leads me into the greater point of, kind of the fatal flaw of liberal progressive thinking and, political thinking in general. It's just, it's this confusion between the left and right hemisphere, right? There are plenty of liberal canards and positions that they take to be a scientific material fact, when in reality it's nothing more than a narrative. It is nothing more than a naked claim with no evidence, or at least evidence that is entirely spurious and very weak and paper thin when you actually examine it, right? So like, Dr. Ford's testimony can't be corroborated. There's literally no evidence. Even the people who she says were there say they don't remember anything like that ever happening, right? So it's a naked claim, but because it's a claim based in emotion, right? Those with a right brain dominant psychology, they accept it as, I believe her, right? And that's all that it takes for them is, I believe her. It doesn't matter if she can prove her claim, doesn't matter if anybody else can substantiate it. I believe her because I feel like it, right? Right brain dominant, again. And the idea of, well, does she have any proof? This is a man who's been a federal judge for 30 years. There's no evidence in his entire history that suggests that this is the type of person he is, right? There's no way to back up that naked claim. And so people on the right, left brain dominant, again, they see, well, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? I can't just believe a claim. I don't care what it feels like. Okay, I need evidence. And, there is no evidence, right? And they say, oh, we'll get an FBI investigation, and that'll give us the evidence, right? We'll see. Trump is calling their bluff and said that there's an FBI investigation underway. Who knows what they're actually investigating? Maybe they're investigating, things pertinent to the testimony, but not actually the, witnesses of the, claimed testimony itself. Right, maybe they're investigating why Dianne Feinstein held onto this thing. Maybe they're investigating why, who leaked the information of Christine Blasey Ford, right? She wanted to be anonymous, but because the blue team, these Democratic, goblins, right, wanted to make it as dramatic and sparks and fire as possible, they saved it to the last minute, threw her name out into the public, and then made this whole public spectacle, right? And it's sad because, again, it's plausible to believe that something happened to her, and through traumatic memory revisions, right, she's just misremembering that it was Brett Kavanaugh. Maybe it was him, and this is like he just repented after that point, and his whole life has been a testament to goodness after that one, event. And it doesn't necessarily seem that plausible, but who knows? Who knows? We don't know, right? And, again, if she's a professor in Palo Alto, the possibility of MK Ultra being performed on her to kind of cultivate these memories, induce these memories, is very plausible to me as well. That's more on the conspiracy side, but it's all so well documented at this point that, if you have a hard time believing in the existence of the MK Ultra program, right, you need to do some reading, because this is not like a mystery anymore. It's very well known. And, MK Ultra is just the modern incarnation of an ancient form of magic, right? Of knowing the frame of the human, not just physically, but psychically and emotionally. And when you know the cues and archetypes playing out inside of that realm, you can manipulate people by introducing, the puppet show, right? Introducing stimuli and measuring and calculating people's reactions. That's what the media does all day long, right? And when you get hip to it, you can just watch the news and listen to these people and sit and just and just hear the falseness, right? You can hear the lies, right? And I thought, Ford's testimony was believable enough, but, then just as soon as the newscasters and the pundits cut in and they just start babbling, and I just got to turn down the volume and fast forward because it's so obvious to me that they're lying. It's like being poked in the eye, right? It's like, it just doesn't sound the same as when a person is telling the truth, right? And I believe that Kavanaugh is telling the truth. Being questioned about, things in your yearbook, right? People are saying, oh, I don't believe him. Boof doesn't mean flatulence, right? Devil's Triangle isn't a game of quarters. It's like, you guys are literally like the worst kind of conspiracy theorists right now. You won't accept Pizzagate, which is basically, based on FBI documented symbolism used by child traffickers, right? You don't want to believe the FBI on that point, but you want to believe them when their politically biased leadership just makes up a phony Russiagate charge and pursues it for 2 years with no real evidence whatsoever. right? The conspiracy theory thing too illustrates this whole thing, right? It's a conspiracy theory to believe that, you know, 9/11 wasn't exactly what they said it was. It's a conspiracy theory to believe that, you know, there's degenerate, you know, satanic pedos in the government, right? It's it's a, you know, conspiracy theory to say that global warming is a, you know, a fraud perpetrated on a scientifically ignorant public. Right, but Russiagate, that's hard fact, right? That's real, you know, Ford being, you know, I believe her, that's real, right? There's right? We believe in science on the left, but, you know, gender is a social construct, right? There's just this this great schism and this cognitive dissonance of people, of what they claim to believe and what they actually believe. And if you're actually witnessing the metaphysics of how these thoughts are, you know, how this cognition is taking place, you know, examining the psychology, like was the creator of Dilbert, Scott Adams. He's so great about this. I highly recommend following him on Twitter, and just, you know, he says a lot of great things. And, you know, I think he's a trained hypnotist. So again, he knows kind of the meta aspect of how these feelings and thoughts are cultivated. This mass psychology, right, that the Nazis were very good at. And, you know, basically that, you know, technique was brought over and used, you know, in mass, you know, marketing in the United States, right? Edward Bernays, right? Bless you. I think the brother or the cousin of Sigmund Freud. You know, they learned how the mind works in order to control the mind, the mass mind of the people. And, you know, hopefully Kavanaugh's confirmed, right? You know, it really seems that the QAnon narrative is actually playing out. You know, there are over 50,000 sealed indictments across the country, right? Kavanaugh is definitely a supporter of executive privilege for trying enemy combatants in military tribunals. Again, if the QAnon thing is correct, that basically Trump and the white hats in the government are trying to bring down this network of human traffickers and this deep, deep state of really evil, satanic people, right? It makes sense that they would be trying to get someone like Kavanaugh on the court who supports executive privilege, you know, for that sort of legal action of military tribunals, right? And why the left would be just, you know, rabid in their opposition to him, because it's not just about abortion and Roe v. Wade. It's literally about, you know, the same reason that the media has been so, you know, freaking out since Trump got elected, because they see him as a threat. They see him as a threat to their entire network, right? And they should, because he is. And, you know, all of this is part and parcel of the Great Awakening, of people waking up on this planet, raising their vibration, becoming more conscious of what's happening, and taking action, most importantly. Because again, as long as people just want to sit on the computer and research conspiracies and, you know, imbibe the fear porn of just, the Illuminati, the Anunnaki, the deep state, and just keep that fear vibration and just hiding, right, thinking that they're coming after you, like, that's not gonna fly. You gotta raise your vibration, get your life in order, like Jordan Peterson says, make your bed, raise your awareness, create a constructive vibration, a virtuous feedback loop, and then when you confront evil in the micro or the macro, you call it out and you speak the truth. You don't have to be angry, like Jesse Lee Peterson says, just speak the truth, right? And that's all it takes for us to get from where we are to where we're going, which is paradise on earth, my brothers. Paradise on earth, my sisters, and because that's the world that Isla's gonna live in, and I'll be damned if we don't get there right on time, if not ahead of time. Because as long as people keep waking up and acting on the truth, that there's nothing that can stop it. That's the kingdom of heaven being manifest on earth, right? There's nothing that can stop that. I know, it's so exciting, Isla, right? Anyway, that's my video for today. I think that's pretty much all that there is to say. You know, hopefully Kavanaugh's confirmed, you know, after this week of FBI investigations, and after that we'll see what happens in the midterms. But in any case, life is good. Remember not to be afraid, raise your vibration, and just speak the truth, because that's all it takes. All right, brothers, all right, sisters, cheers. Hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next time.
I